YouTube family, what is good, man? Back again with another video for you guys. Currently up over $4,000 on crude oil this week. Depending on how we close these trades that I'm in today, probably going to finish here. Today's Thursday, by the way, so there's only one day left. Today I'm going to kind of go into a little bit of a deep dive regarding, what it kind of takes to actually gain consistency in the market and where some of you are probably going wrong in terms of picking good trades, understanding how to simplify your strategy, because realistically, until you get to the point that you're able to do that, you're going to have good days and then you're going to have bad days, but you're going to still have the inconsistency issue. Okay, so in order to overcome that, it really comes down to the perspective of what can you do very good within your strategy and what conditions do you need in order to do very good with your strategy. Okay, now if you cannot differentiate or have some type of discernment from different market conditions, you're constantly going to find those issues in terms of just understanding when you do well and when you don't do well. Okay, now it's easy to say I know good market conditions and it's easy to say I know when not to trade, but realistically most of you are still encountering the same issues because deep down I don't think you actually know. And that's no disrespect to any of you that are tuning in. It's just something you really need to understand. Okay, now I don't make great trades every single time, like in terms of all the trades I take. Do I take losses? Yes, I do, but I limit my losses because I'm not trading that many trades. I'm not taking that many trades per week. And I always stand for the understanding of less is more, quality over quantity. Now if you're a scalper, you might disagree, but at the same time, it's just about understanding when the market is giving you conditions that are easily met and when they're not. So with the oil trades that I took yesterday, I'm going to post some screenshots here. You can see how precise the entry was. Okay, now I really want you to understand why it's so precise and why the area was able to, it was a limit order for those that are interested in understanding how I actually got into it. That is how much conviction I had on this trade. Okay, what you need to understand is the area that I mapped out made sense for it to actually shoot down from. Okay, if the area that I actually was selling from was invalidated, okay, the trend would have changed. Now, if you've been following oil or not, it's been very, very bearish for a few months now. Okay, so the trend overall is still downwards. So it's going to be easier for you to catch moves in a downtrend. Okay, now if you don't know how to do that, and again, you don't know how to differentiate, check out some of my previous videos, right? In terms of approaching it from the psychological perspective. Okay, because again, you can sharpen your skills and really understand what it is that your strategy is, but you have to defeat yourself. Okay, you have to actually overcome the bad things that you do in the market, right? You have to actually embody what it means to sometimes sit on your hands. You have to embody what it means to sometimes not have a trade. And a lot of people are struggling with this because they're treating it like a hobby, right? This is a business. It's really not a hobby. Now, everyone thinks that, not everyone, okay? What I want to say is people have different reasons as to why they're coming into trading, okay? Some want to go full-time. Hopefully, if you're a viewer, you want to go full-time. I hope that that's the direction you want to do, because it's what I did. So I'm going to relate to you more, and vice versa, you're going to relate to me more. Some are part-timers, okay? You just want a secondary income. Again, while that's achievable, what are you doing right? What are you doing in order to gain 1% better every single day? That's something you have to question as well. And then those that are kind of like more investment based, maybe you want to kind of swing trade or buy certain assets at good prices and understand the charts from that perspective. Cool, that's great too, but at the same time your entry is really critical, and it's going to be the difference in terms of how much money and how much profit you actually make. Now, it doesn't come overnight, but it does come with refinement. It does come with you understanding yourself and understanding what it is your strategy and your confirmations are. And that only comes by doing the work, guys. Honestly, where I'm at today in terms of being able to make such good trades where I can live and, pay my bills on time and not worry about all of those stresses. Now, where am I where I want to be in the grand scope of things? Not yet. But it's still a process. I've chipped away at all the bad areas, all the bad habits, all the bad parts of the strategy where you can basically overcomplicate it to the point where you're in a hole and you're not really seeing that improvement. Okay, now for those that have been with me and understanding the pairs that I like to trade, oil is one of my favorites. Okay. Now, the reason I like it so much is because technically it's really easy to read the chart. Now, for those that don't trade oil, and I know a lot of my viewers, they like to trade gold. Again, it's all technical based. If you don't know how to read the chart correctly, then there's something you're not actually up to in terms of your skill set in order to actually be trading live. Now, I want you to take a step back if that relates to you and understand that, trying to basically trade your way for a bad spell may not be the actual thing you need to be doing. Maybe it's going back to the education. Maybe it's refining what doesn't work in terms of your strategy, okay? And until you get those things right, you're going to see the same days where they're good and the same bad days are going to keep popping up. Now, everyone is entitled to have a bad day on the charts, okay? But if it's the same mistakes you're making, right, that goes back to the accountability aspect of what I like to preach and what I like to talk about on my channel in terms of understanding yourself on a deeper level. Now, everyone's in this to make money. Sometimes the charts don't offer you an opportunity to make money, and that's really important in terms of you understanding the difference. Now, it's going to be the difference between you having a great week and you having a week you want to forget. So yeah, guys, the next segment that I want to speak about is basically relating to the last video that I posted regarding position size, and hopefully you guys have got a chance to actually watch it. If you haven't, it's a really good video in my opinion. That's going to basically help you in understanding when to actually risk more and when to actually take your foot off the gas and actually say to myself, okay, I'm actually going to go smaller in terms of this trade particularly, right? Because it's really important, again, to understand when you actually have a great trade on your hands in terms of the confirmations you do well at spotting and they play out in your favor. Those are the ones where, your risk can actually be increased because you should have more of your edge on show, which should actually breed you and breed more confidence in terms of what it is you're trying to do on the chart, okay? So it's really important that we understand that not every conditions are going to be optimal. Not every condition demands the same amount of risk or should demand the same amount of risk. Some of you guys may be risking too much on trades that are crap. Excuse my language, but some of you may be risking going in on trades where you actually should think about the overall scope of what it is you like to see in terms of your confirmations and what is your trading plan, what do you like to do, and be like, actually, there's not that many I can tick off this list. I'm actually gonna decrease my risk, okay? And it's really important, again, it's about discernment and it's about not just hoping that the trade goes in your favor because you see a few things, right? It's really having the ability and the belief in terms of clear analysis and simple analysis. And again, it goes back to really refining your strategy and having a trading plan where it's like, I don't know what time frames you guys use, but I love the daily time frame. I love the 4-hour time frame. When I can see that picture lining up in terms of areas that I'm interested in trading from, it gives me stronger belief throughout, the London and New York sessions when I'm pulling the trigger in those areas. Now, some of you guys might like to trade on the 1 hour. Some of you guys might like to trade on 15-minute or 5-minute and stuff like that. But you really have to understand in terms of the belief system, right? You're going to aid yourself in having a stronger belief system if you stick to the higher time frames. Now, a lot of people hear this and again, they get confused as to what it really means to stick to the higher time frame. Now, in terms of getting a bias and really understanding a bias and forming a real reason to actually believe, it's all based off of the market structure, okay? It's all based off of trend. So without really going, showing you charts and just speaking about it, the trend, right, shows you the direction that you think the market should overall be going in. Now, with something like oil, in terms of the trade that I took, right, and why I was able to believe in the trade is because overall, I knew I was trading in the same direction that the market should be going in, right? Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to retrace. It doesn't mean it's not going to pull back. But in terms of when you get those pullbacks, you're now looking for the trend to then continue from those areas. So your belief should be stronger in those trades, right? Now, can you have counter trend trades where you're going, the wrong way, or you're trying to catch the retracement? Sure. But in terms of the overall direction, deep down by looking at the higher time frames, you are overall going in the wrong direction. Now, why it's important to really try and cut those type of trades to a minimal, especially in your educational stage, right? I tell all of my students, do not try and get the retracement. It comes with time and skills. It's not simple. It's not going to be as simple, should I say, to catch a retracement as it is to catch the overall trend. It's going to be way easier for you to catch the overall trend because that's the direction the market is going in. Now, why I say this is that when you're in that mode, or you're in that episode of your trading career where you're trying to just get better, it's going to be easier for you to just catch trades that are going with the overall trend. Okay, it doesn't mean you can't catch retracements. I just mean in terms of switching your bias and then understanding what it is you're looking for and where to cut the trade short, because it's going to be a short-term trade if you're trying to catch a pullback, right? It's different in terms of the psychological aspect as to when to be able to switch. It's not going to be as easy for you because you're still learning. So if you can actually bypass that and maybe wait for the pullback to occur instead of trying to buy and sell every single time, I'm pretty sure your win rate will improve, and I'm pretty sure your confirmations as to what you're actually looking for on the chart you'll get a stronger belief in that. And I want to preach that because, again, I know a lot of you guys show up to the charts every day, or whatever your schedule is, and the focus is to make money, and I get all of that. But at the same time, if your pairs are not warranting you and not granting you the conditions in order to read the market, number one, but in order to actually profit off of good setups, right, quality setups, then sometimes, guys, it's better to actually wait instead of just trying to catch the retracement. Because sometimes I'm guilty of it, right? You know that a retracement is coming, and sometimes you'll say, okay, this is going to be a short-term trade, I'm going to catch it from point A to point B, right? But you don't know how far it's going to retrace. You don't know if it's going to retrace a little bit and then continue to trend again. Like, there's so many factors to catching a retracement, right? Instead of actually going along with the trend, that again, it makes you kind of look at yourself and look at what you're doing on the chart as, is my strategy good enough? And it's not about that. What it's about is your bias actually correct in terms of the direction? Now, why it's important to focus on that, guys, especially if you're in the beginner phase, or you're in an intermediate phase, or you've been studying it for 12 months, but you're not profitable yet. I'm telling you, when you're trying to buy and sell both sides of the market, right? Yes, it's doable. But what I'm trying to say is, if you are yet to actually see that consistency, it's going to be easier for you to trade with a trend. Believe me on that. Now, obviously, another thing, right? For those that have obviously subscribed to my channel, you've been seeing the content that I drop, right? I'm always going to try and tell you guys the truth and lead you guys the right way. Main reason being is that these are the things that I needed to hear from the beginning. And I know you guys need to hear it as well, because there's so many voices in the space, okay, that you can get lost. It's very difficult to filter. So I'm not going to lead you guys astray or tell you to do things that I'm not either doing myself, or tell you things to avoid that I'm not avoiding myself, right? Now, again, in terms of actually gaining clarity on your strategy and understanding your method, right? In the beginning, right? Doing things the right way is better than you making money, okay? And these are things that I didn't understand in the beginning either, because again, you're programmed to think about profit, profit, profit. But why I'm saying that, right, is if you do not know your own method and you do not actually do the things that are required in terms of actually being able to consistently do it, right? And you start going down the path of doing, I don't even want to call them gambling, but like tactics where you can't consistently do those things on a chart and actually see profit. Sometimes it's actually going to burn you to do that. I don't want you to reinforce basically bad habits, because it's not easy to break out of that once you've reinforced that, okay, that made me money once. Like, your brain remembers these things, that you're smarter than you think you are. And why it's important to understand is that without really getting past the faults and reinforcing the faults, if you do that, it's going to be difficult for you to break out of that, right? Especially if you're in a bad spell with those reinforcing natures, right? So the method is 10 times more important than the result. And again, people are going to disagree. People are going to be like, at the end of the day, it's about making money. Yes, but can you actually prove to yourself that you can actually consistently do something in regards to the method you're applied to the chart? That's a question that you have to be able to answer. If you cannot answer that, then realistically, you have no strategy. you don't really know what you're doing, right? And in the long run, you're not going to be consistent. Anyone can have a great month, right? And I don't mean this to undermine people or be like, yeah, you just got lucky. But what I'm saying is, if you're not applying the same principles in order to actually achieve that great month over a span of a year, what are you really going to do results wise? Like what are you actually aiming for? So I say that to say that, again, when it comes to my channel and when you guys are looking at the videos and what I'm actually saying, I'm not saying things that I am not doing or I didn't have to learn from. And it's really important that you guys understand that. So when it comes to building consistency, don't undermine the steps needed in order to actually gain that belief in your strategy and also cut out the mistakes. So the method is 10 times more important than the result. Now, another thing I want to touch on, guys, is when it comes to actually trading, okay, less is always more. You don't need 10 pairs. You don't need 20 pairs. You don't need that, right? Now, if you're in that phase of switching out your pairs, right, because you're thinking that, you know, your strategy is not really applying to the certain charts that you maybe feel like you had an attachment to and you want to kind of switch. 10 pairs, in my opinion, is too many pairs. I don't think you need that many pairs, okay? Now, if you're in that phase of trying to actually gain consistency, don't look at more than 2 pairs, okay? Some of you might think, wow, like 2 pairs is just not that many. The reason I'm saying this is, again, to build the belief in your skill set. It's just seeing the same things pop up in charts that you're familiar with and, you know, kind of gaining the synchronization with those charts. If you keep chopping and changing, right, you're going to think it's the pair's fault. And sometimes it's not the pair's fault. Sometimes it might be a crap pair. But when you just keep chopping and changing pairs because you think, you know, I had a good day trading this or I had a good week trading this, right? And then the next week comes and then it's like, actually, this pair is not doing anything. Let me go to another pair. Sometimes, guys, right, having no trade is actually a good thing, right? Now, the reason I'm saying this is because you have to understand that the conditions and the cycles that the market does happens over and over again, and there's nothing you can do to avoid it. It doesn't matter what pairs you keep swapping between and anything like that, right? The market is either going to be in a trending phase, it's going to be in a retracement phase, or it's going to be consolidating. Now, your pair, whatever pairs you like to trade, right, are not exempt from any of those cycles, okay? It doesn't mean the pair is now crap if it's consolidating for a week or 2 weeks. It doesn't mean the pair is just not doing anything. It just means that the cycle it's in demands patience. And it's another thing that is just an underlying factor as to why some of you guys are not profitable yet and why you're yet to prove to yourself or turn the corner, if you want to call it that, is that you just don't have the patience required. And it's not something I can teach you or show you when to sit on your hands. It's just something that is an element that once you've actually had enough of failing, it should become second nature as to why it is you're now waiting, because you don't want to go back to familiar feelings of just thinking the market is going to allow you to get paid every day. Anyone preaching, right, that they make money every single day of trading, be very skeptical of, okay? Especially if they're saying it in a way where it's like it's a crazy winning streak and it's just every single day there's a trade available. It's just not true. Now, as much as the markets are open 24/7, 5 days a week, yes, if you trade crypto, it's open 7 days a week, sure. Is there a trade every single day? No. Is there an entry for you in terms of your model, what you like to actually use to get in a trade? Is that showing up every single day? The answer is no. So respect the market is what I'm saying. Understand that you have a life outside of your computer as well. Okay, there's a such thing as alerts where you can just pinpoint when the market is breaking past areas, and now you can actually start thinking about your next step. But you don't need to be glued here, right? And a lot of people tie consistency to turning up every day. That doesn't mean consistency in an efficient way. Now, why I say that is because sometimes when you turn up every day, right, it comes across as boring when you're not actually getting any gratification from it. And the gratification obviously is going to be in the form of money, in the form of profit, in the form of I made X amount today, right? Sometimes, guys, you're going to turn up, and just because you turn up doesn't mean that the market has to give you something, okay? These are all things that we have to get out of our minds. for the better, of course. Now, why I'm saying this is because it goes back to entitlement, right? There is no entitlement in trading. The market doesn't owe you anything for showing up today. There's times in the week where I'm streaming, right? I've got an audience, right? I'm hoping something happens so that I can actually, appease the fans or appease the audience and be like, yeah, look, we're getting into this trade, right? But sometimes I can't promise that. So streaming is actually, it's a little bit more difficult in the sense of you can fall into that trap of, nah, I need to press a button today. Okay. And again, it goes back to those that stream every day, and in trades every single day. Unless you're like scalping or doing like little trades, you're not going to have a 4-hour daily setup every single day. Sometimes it just needs those extra time, that extra bit of time in order to develop. And developing is worth the wait, because I'm telling you, when you get into those bigger time frame trades, they're going to yield way more, and that's going to allow you to risk more. That's going to allow you to profit more. All of the things that I spoke about earlier in the video, that is how you determine good trades from not so good trades, all right, or no trades at all. And if you don't have that discernment, right, you're going to continuously go around in that loop because you're just thinking about getting paid. It's not only about that. It's about who are you as a trader? Who are you when you don't have a trade? That's the more important thing. Okay, so why I'm preaching this video, and while I'm sitting and waiting for this trade that I'm in to potentially go in my favor, it's in a little bit of profit, like 30 pips profit, but my target is way further down. Okay, so I don't mind doing this video, speaking to you guys, giving you guys this video whilst I'm in this trade. You should be comfortable. You shouldn't be panicking. You shouldn't be able to not come away from your chart or be glued to your screen because you want to know what the next move is, right? Trading should be in a calm environment, an environment where you're able to think clearly, right? You're not able to just be scrambled. If you're scrambled, there's only a few reasons as to why you're scrambled, right? You're either revenge trading because you took a loss, you're trying to make money back. You've risked too much, right? So you can't take your eyes off of it because your risk is actually like, if this doesn't go in my favor, I'm in problems, right? Which again, we should never find ourselves in. Or you're in desperation mode where maybe you have to trade today in order to make money. Maybe you're trying to make a deadline in order to make money, right? Those states, right, cloud your judgment in terms of how you're able to think, right? Once you start getting into that dangerous territory of those states of mind, you actually need to step away before you do something very detrimental. Okay, now why I want to say this is because these are all things in the beginning that no one told me. These are all things that I had to go through where I actually could have saved myself, and in terms of money and all of the actual emotional burden that comes with being in those states of mind, right? I want you guys to actually skip those if you can. And how you skip them is by understanding the belief in your trading strategy, obviously, but more so when you have a good trade, times when you don't have a trade, what to do outside of that. Times you're sitting in a trade, what to do when you're in it. Like, you don't need to be glued to the chart, truthfully speaking. It's not going to make the chart go any faster, It's not going to make the chart get to my take profit any quicker, anything like that. So what can you really do? You're kind of helpless when you're in the trade. Now, all you can bank on is doing your analysis correctly, and that still doesn't guarantee that the trade is going to play out, but it's a game of probability, guys. Okay, we want to get it to the point where I've done my analysis, I believe in the trade, I think it's going to go this way, these are my reasons for that, here we go. Okay, so that's really what I wanted to kind of bring you guys with this video. Hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. Hopefully you can see what it is that you need to work on as well, right, for the next time, or something you need to actually think about in terms of highlighting one of those things that maybe you do and subconsciously you do it, but you don't know how to actually get out of it, right? It's really important to do that so that you actually have a career. If you want to go into day trading full time, or you want to just actually make real consistent gains from it, you have to be able to have that discernment. Okay, now for those that are interested, right, I have a free community. Now you guys are all welcome. The link is in the description, of course. If you have joined already, you're going to see all of the benefits of being in there in terms of what gets uploaded daily, my outlook, other people's outlook, students that have gone on to now be consistent and make their own money. They're all inside here. Now, if you're at the phase in terms of your career or in terms of your education where you feel like you're onto something, but you need that missing link, okay? I'm now opening my mentorship, my one-to-one mentorship, right? It's going to be limited spaces, right? But I want to help you guys in terms of just getting you over the hump and getting you to that ability where you know you're capable of doing it, but you just maybe don't have the steps and the guidelines to do it, okay? Now, if you want that, again, click the link in my bio and fill out the form. There's a wait list for it. And then once I actually get back to you with that, then we can have a chat and see where you are and just understand what it is your struggles are, okay? Now, I only can obviously take a limited amount of people for that. So hopefully you guys that are really interested and you're willing to take that step, you're ready to actually do that as well, okay? Now, like and subscribe to the channel, guys, okay? I'm gonna start doing more of these videos where I'm just kind of chilling and waiting and I've got a bit more time. Instead of actually doing it in terms of a scheduled manner, I'm gonna be a bit more sporadic and just get it out there as and when I can, okay? So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys on the next one for sure. Remember, guys, okay, simplicity is always going to be the key. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't do too much, right? Doing too much is not going to get you paid more, okay? Yes, you need to be consistent in terms of actually showing up to the chart, but it's about simplicity, and that's the step that you actually need to get to level up. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you for watching the latest episode. If you like that, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content. I'll see you on the next video.